Hey everybody, my name is Josiah Thibodeau, and today I want to talk about the idea, are you pursuing happiness or are you an expression of joy? And I think this is an important concept because if we are living as an expression of joy, it's something that can help lead us out of turmoil, lead us out of negative thinking patterns, because we begin to understand that it's not necessarily about the external circumstances or situations. It's about how we live and feel internally. But one of the things that I guess causes issues in our lives is we have this juxtaposition between what happiness is and pursuing happiness and what joy is and living from joy, as opposed to having to chase it all the time. So when we're on this journey, we need to be able to ask, can this idea of exuding joy help us overcome negative emotions more effectively than the idea of pursuing or chasing after happiness? And I believe the answer is yes. Because if you're pursuing after something, if you're pursuing happiness, you're chasing it. It means you don't have it yet. It's not something that you possess. It's something that you're constantly going after. And until you get that thing, you can't feel intrinsically the way that you want to feel. Which I believe that every one of us wants to feel peace, joy, and love. I think that's the basics of what people are after as they're going through all the different things that they go through in life. The reasons that we get into the different relationships that we get into is because we're looking for love. The reason that we're chasing after the specific house or car or whatever it is to have some sort of peace or joy in our lives where we feel like we are accepted, we've accomplished, we've done things that have some sort of meaning. And so that gives us a sense of peace or a sense of joy about who we are and our place within the universe and our world. And so as we go through this today, I want you to kind of think about what is it that you do as an individual when it comes to pursuing happiness, pursuing things that make you feel good about yourself as a human being alive. And what do you do that creates or that has generated an intrinsic feeling or idea of joy from within? Do you have something that you know, on a regular basis or continually through your life, you just feel at peace because whatever the reason is? You're constantly happy and joyful because whatever the reason is. Start to reflect on some of those different things and those different ideas. Now, for me, part of this was I dealt with depression and anxiety for way too long. I dealt with it for probably at least 20 years, if not a little bit longer. I don't know when it actually started. I didn't know for the longest time that I was depressed, that I had that issue. I just thought, hey, this is just life. You know, this is just how it is. And somehow we're all still here, scraping, barely making it by. And at some point, thank God, we're all going to die, right? Because it was just miserable. It was so miserable. I almost took my life on several occasions. It was so bad. And I don't know when it started, early, mid, late teens. I do know that by age 19, I was on the verge of committing suicide, and then several more times in my 20s. And it wasn't until I was almost 30 years old that I started realizing, hey, like there's something wrong. Something is not right in my life. I'm depressed. And so then I started the journey of, well, how do I not feel this way? And so I went on that journey, and it was a pretty long road, almost 10 years of trying to figure out, how do I not live this way or feel this way? And I think I could have shortened that time drastically had I understood or known how to make those changes within my life, but I didn't at the time. And that's something that I would hope that I would be able to share with you. And some of the things that we're going to be talking about today will hopefully help reframe maybe some of the situations that you're dealing with or going through, so that you can speed up that process of overcoming whatever it is that you're dealing with in life and getting to the point where you are living a life of freedom, a life of joy, peace, and love, like we're all after. So one of the things that really helped me along this journey is I was getting close to the point of overcoming depression. And one of the things that really helped kind of push me over the hill, I think, was listening to a podcast by Lewis Howes. He was talking to the Indian mystic Sadhguru, which if you haven't heard of Sadhguru, I love Sadhguru. The way that he explains and talks about different ideas just puts them very simply into perspective. And during this podcast, I really had an aha moment. It was just like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. So they were talking, and Sadhguru asked the question, is your life in the pursuit of happiness, or is it an expression of joy? And I immediately stopped the podcast at that point. I wrote down what he'd said, and I created that quote, and I probably thought of that quote every day for 2 years. Just over and over and over again, constantly thinking about this idea. Are you in the pursuit of happiness, or are you an expression of joy? Because there's a difference in how you live your life, depending on which of those options you're choosing for yourself, right? There's a big difference. If you're living life in the pursuit of happiness, which the American dream, they made a movie, based on the pursuit of happiness. It's something that's kind of just our society, our mentality, our culture is this thing that we've built up for ourselves. If we, everybody wants the nice house with the white picket fence and the 2.3 kids and the nice car, the perfect job, the perfect spouse. That's our idea of happiness, and we're pursuing that thing, which, again, like I said earlier, means that we don't have it. So we're going after it. We're constantly chasing it. We think that our life is going to be better when we get that new car, when we get that house, when we get that promotion, when we get whatever it is that you're looking for next. We think that our life is going to be better because of that. And it may. I'm not saying that it won't, but it may be better. But for how long? How long until you revert back to whatever state or feeling that you feel right now, where you don't feel enough? Maybe you feel inadequate. You don't have the things that you need to feel fulfilled in life. How long will it take before you revert back to that thought process? And that's the whole issue with the pursuing aspect, is that it's never going to be enough. You're never going to have enough money. Your house isn't going to be big enough. Your cars aren't going to be fast enough or fancy enough. You're not going to be able to go on the vacations that you want to go on and travel where you want to travel and blah, blah, blah. The, list goes on and on and on. And how long before, you come back to this state? It's really a resting state of who you are in life and how you feel about life. I think part of the issue is that the pursuit of happiness is really just about materialistic things. It's everything out there. I'm going after all these things outside of myself to make me feel better internally within myself. A lot of it ends up being the idea of comparison as well. We see somebody else has this thing and they seem happy because they have that. Well, if I have that, then I'll feel happy as well. And so we're comparing ourselves to others. We see people on social media who look like everything is going great. But in reality, things might not be going so well for them. I know people who their social media looks like things are going well, but in reality, they're struggling with some really deep things. There's some real issues that they're dealing with in life that are causing problems. And they're working through it. They're working through those different issues. But just because you see one thing doesn't mean that it's the complete or actual reflection of what's going on with a particular person. But what happens with the social media is we look at that and we think, oh, I want to live that way as well. Because what we do is, for the most part, presenting the best part of ourselves. So we think that we're missing out because we don't have what this person has. And so what do? We compare ourselves to that. Because we don't have that, we feel less than, not as good as we could be, whatever the issue is there. So what do? We constantly fret and stress and get into strife about, well, how do I get this thing? How do I become this person? How do I change my life so that? And it becomes this idea of comparison. If I can show that I'm doing better than somebody else, then I can feel good about who I am. There's a great meme that I saw not too long ago. It said, my friend got a tattoo on his arm that says, comparison is the thief of joy. And I'm thinking of getting the same tattoo, just a little bit bigger. Great meme for this idea of comparison. Because that's exactly what it's like. It's trying to constantly one-up what other people are doing so that we can feel good about who we are. Or show off that we have this thing because that makes us feel better about ourselves. If we can drive this super nice car and get people to turn their heads, or as we're driving, think to ourselves, people think that I am successful, or I am this, or I am that, that makes us feel good about who we are as a person. And so what do? We keep chasing and pursuing after these things, because eventually what's going to happen, that nice car that you're driving, it's just going to end up seeming like just a rust bucket at some point, even though it might still be nice. You're just going to look at it and be like, I want something better. I want something bigger. I want something faster. I want something nicer. I want something more expensive. Because if we can get to that next level, then we can feel good about ourselves again. And that's a problem with pursuing happiness. That's a problem with chasing after it. It's a constant dissatisfaction. I mean, our society is just this overstimulation of greed and excess. Really, because we want to feel good about who we are internally. But a lot of that is based off looking at what other people have and feeling like we don't have as much or we don't have enough. So how do we change that? How do we get to the point where we are okay in and of ourselves without the need for these external things? Right? That's where we need to be. If we can get ourselves to that place, I think a lot of problems in the world will cease to exist. A lot of the problems that we have or issues are because of greed. It's because of us trying to one-up another person. It's because of us trying to be better than somebody else, as opposed to us learning how to be okay with who we are and accepting ourselves for ourselves. It doesn't mean that we don't try to be better, we don't try to do things in the world, that we don't have goals and things that we want to achieve, places that we want to go, things that we want to do. It doesn't mean that. It's being okay with who we are, regardless of what's going on around us. That's where we need to get. So some of the things that we need to look at when we're talking about this pursuit of happiness is, how long does that actually last? How long does it last in your life? If you get that new car, how long are you happy that you got that new car? A lot of people think marriage is I'm going to get married and my life is going to change for the better. And yeah, it can. No doubt about that. But there are a lot of problems and issues that come with marriage that people aren't necessarily aware of. And so after your wedding, how long until you start to feel like, I don't know if this is really fulfilling what I thought it was going to fulfill within me? Because if you haven't learned how to do that within yourself, and you're putting that pressure on somebody else, you're probably going to be causing more problems. So how do you learn how to accept yourself first so that you can go into a relationship with somebody else and not put anything on them to make you feel the way that you want to feel as far as being accepted and loved? How do you learn to love yourself first? How do you learn to live from a place of joy, a place of peace? That's where you want to be. So if you go into a marriage expecting that this other person is going to make you into that version that you want to be, I'm sorry to say that you're probably going to be pretty disappointed. How do you get there before you even get to that marriage? So when it comes to all the different things that we're doing, all the different things that we're going after, what is it that you think that you're doing right now is going to bring you that ultimate happiness? Whatever it is that you're chasing. How long after you get it do you think you're going to be happy? There's a great quote by Alex Hormozy that says, money only solves money problems, and then you're left with problems money can't solve. And that's true for every area of our life. We think that this thing is going to solve whatever particular problem that we have. And maybe it will for a little bit. But maybe it's just that one problem. Then you have all the rest of the problems that you got to deal with. At some point, we have to learn to deal with the intrinsic problems that we are going through, as opposed to trying to band-aid those problems with whatever situations that we think are going to fix it from the external. So, happiness tied to external events is fleeting. It really is. If you can learn to live as an expression of joy, that joy is going to transcend whatever external circumstances are going on around you. If you can live as an expression of peace, hope, love, generosity, those will transcend whatever's happening around you. So how do we learn how to live that way? Some of it is just understanding where we are. Some of it's understanding who we are and what's going on in life. Knowing that a lot of these pursuits that we're after are fairly meaningless. Dr. Zach Bush was on a podcast with host Deja, and she's not doing the podcast anymore, but I think you could still find it on Spotify. And he was talking to her about the death experience. He said he's sat with hundreds of people as they are dying. And it was really a very interesting insight into the death experience and how we are in this world and transitioning over to whatever's happening next. I mean, so cool. But one of the things that he was talking about during this podcast was when people are dying, and he said this was for everybody that he sat with. They didn't talk about their money. They didn't talk about their cars. They didn't talk about their houses. They didn't talk about their achievements or accomplishments. He said that the thing that they talked about were their relationships and being in nature. That's what they talked about. And I think the reason that they probably talked about that is because their relationships is when they felt loved. That's where they felt love, and that's where they gave love. They gave and received love through those relationships. They experienced joy watching the different relationships that they have, watching their children grow, watching their friends grow, watching their family change and develop and morph into, the dynamic that it did. And then being in nature. Being in nature just intrinsically brings on a sense of peace. I think it's because it's so big and beyond what we are used to experiencing. I mean, if you go on a hike in the mountains and you're in the middle of the woods, it's very quiet. It's very different from being in a city around a bunch of people and cars and noise. It's very peaceful and relaxing. And then you get to the top of the mountain and you're looking around. You can see for miles and miles. And you start to have this sense that there's something bigger than you called the world. And it's out there, and it's full of life. And you can just stare around you, and you just feel this sense of peace. Because I think you start to realize that the issues that you're dealing with aren't really that big of a issue that you think they are. But then once you leave the mountain, you go back to your daily life, those issues start to crowd in on you again. They start to kind of take over. But I think that's why people in their last moments talk about nature, because that's when they felt the most peace in their lives. They were able to let go. They didn't have to hold on to all the different things that were causing strife and issues. They're able to just let go and be at peace. So just think about that. As you're going through your day, what is it that you're striving for? What is it that you're really striving for? We're going after all these different things in life, but why? What are you trying to get to? Right? Some of the difficult part of this process is going from the idea of pursuit to the idea of being the expression of. How do you become somebody who is no longer trying to achieve whatever result, to becoming somebody who lives from that place regardless of what's happening? It's a hard thing to do because we get so caught up in all the different pressures of society, pressures of work, relationships, that a lot of times we forget that, hey, I need to just be living from this place as opposed to reacting or trying to get to. And that can be a very difficult process, is getting there. And I think one of the issues that we have is that we don't really want to deal with those deep, dark emotions that we have. Those negative emotions that feel like they're a little overwhelming, a little scary to deal with. It can be hard to go back and actually reconcile yourself with having that issue or feeling within your life. And so what do? We create band-aids for the situation. Instead of dealing with what we're going through inside, we come up with band-aid solutions. I'm going to watch more television. Because when I watch television, I don't have to think about how I'm actually feeling. I'm going to scroll on social media. Because when I scroll on social media, I can be distracted and I don't have to think about how I feel about myself. I don't have to think about the issues that I'm going through and the pain that I'm dealing with. I'll just block it out for a little bit of time. I'll just constantly hang out and talk with friends, complain, whatever, about life, and feel like I'm dealing with something when I'm really not. And use that as a little cover up for what's actually happening within me. We're doing all these little things that are making us feel better about ourselves without actually going in and dealing with ourselves. The truth is, if you want to change your life for whatever reason that you think you have, you want to become better than who you are, live a different life than what you live, you have to deal with yourself. And that life doesn't mean becoming the next big thing out there. It just means, what are you doing or what are you pursuing that makes you think that if I achieve this next goal, my life is going to be changed for the better? That's what you need to look at. Why can't your life be better with everything that you have right now and what you're going through right now just because? I think the reason is because there's a lot of internal turmoil that we're not willing to deal with. And so it's these band-aids that we use, constantly covering it up with pursuing this thing or achieving that thing or going after this. But the more that we run from these issues that we deal with, the longer we put off our healing, and the less likely your life is actually going to change for the better. You have to be honest about where you are in life. You have to be honest about how you actually feel. You have to allow yourself to go there and say, this is the truth of the matter. I feel this way. That's okay. But then you go in and you start to work on it. You start to deal with it. You start to address the issues. You stop allowing yourself to be okay with little band-aids here and there because you don't want to deal with the discomfort of actually going in and working on whatever it is inside of you that's causing all the consternation and stress and frustration. See, most of the time we think that our issue is out there. Our issue is the external. It's coming from our boss, our workplace, our coworkers. It's coming from our different relationships, our family members, our spouse, our kids. It's coming from the different people that we interact with, the idiot drivers, whoever it is that you have on your radar to say, because of you people, because of you situations, because of these different things, that's why my life is not going the way that I wish that it would go. And we think it's all out there. The truth is, the harsh truth, is that the issue is you. The issue is inside of you. And if we refuse to deal with that issue, regardless of what it is, we're going to continue to live the life that we're living now, where it's pursuing something to make us feel better about who we are, so that we can try to get past whatever this thing is inside of us. Are you willing to do that? That's where you have to get. You can start to cultivate habits that will help you with this. You can start to do things right now, today, that will start to help you move past where you are right now in life to get to that life that you want to live without having to do a bunch of pursuing and achieving and accomplishing and gaining and striving for these materialistic things or ideas so that you can feel good about you. There are ways that you can work on yourself. There are ways that you can overcome whatever that main challenge is in your life. But you have to be willing to do it. You have to be willing to work for it. You have to be willing to go in and do the hard thing. You have to be willing to go in and face the dragon inside. To stand there and say, you know what? I'm not going to let you rule my life anymore. I'm not going to let you continue to dictate who I am, how I feel, and the way I act and respond to the world. Many people want to see the world change. But Leo Tolstoy said this: everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself. There's so many people out there who want to change the world, but refuse to change themselves first. They refuse to go in and deal with the root issue of who they are and what's causing them all the strife that they have inside. They see the problems in the world out there, and they're going to go out and they're going to fix all these issues and these problems, but they refuse to deal with the issues happening and going on inside of themselves because it's uncomfortable, it's painful, it hurts. It's hard to go in and deal with some of those things that might bring you to your knees in tears because of the pain that you felt as a result of going through whatever it is that you've gone through. And so instead of going in and dealing with that, you run from it. Don't do that anymore. Stop running from the things that you need to deal with inside. If you want your life to change for the better, you want the world to change for the better, you have to deal with yourself first. Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world. Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. The topic that I'm talking about here today, Sadhguru said, is your life in the pursuit of happiness, or is it the expression of joy? If it's not the expression of joy and you're pursuing happiness, it's because you're unwilling to deal with what's going on internally. There's things that you can do today to start developing the sense of peace and joy and love in your life. There's things that you can start doing today to begin to get over whatever these deep, dark, negative emotions you might have that are holding you back in life. And I'm not saying there aren't people out there who have good lives, but a lot of these people have dealt with some serious stuff. They've gone in and they've done the work. There's a lot of people out there who look like they have great lives, but they don't really have great lives and they haven't done the work. And they're actually miserable inside. So this goes back to the idea of comparison. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. Don't look at somebody else and say, well, they have this, so they must be doing really well. Because there's a lot of people who have a lot of stuff and they're not doing very well. There's a lot of people who don't have anything and they're doing great. The flip side of that's also true. There's a lot of people who don't have anything and they're doing miserable. There's a lot of people who have a lot of stuff and they're doing great. You can't compare yourself. You can't go in and say, well, because I see this person doing this, their life is what I think I want my life to be. Because you don't know. So stop comparing yourself. All you need to worry about is you. All you need to worry about is what you're either dealing with or not dealing with. And you need to get to work with dealing with the things that you don't want to deal with. You want the world to change? You've got to change yourself first. You want your life to change? You can't change anything around you. You have no control over that. So start changing yourself. I guarantee you, when you start to work on yourself and you start to change yourself, the things around you will begin to change as well. Maybe you're in a job and it's not that great of a job and you don't really like it that much. Feel held back, stressful, whatever. When you begin to change yourself and develop yourself and you begin to grow, you will outgrow that job and you will move on and you will find something better. Because you will change the way that you perceive yourself, the way that you think about yourself. And so your limiting beliefs will lift a little bit and you'll be able to move yourself into a different position, a higher level position, doing something that you enjoy, that brings more fulfillment or whatever it is. because you have changed how you think about yourself in all these different situations. I hope that makes sense. So some of the things that you can start doing right now. Number one is start doing hard things. Do something that's difficult and challenging. I'm not talking about base jumping in a squirrel suit, because that's extremely dangerous, although it would be a rush. But I'm talking about things like working out. Start working out. Start developing a workout routine. Do something where you have to push yourself past a limit of comfortability into an unknown space of being uncomfortable, dealing with sore muscles, being out of breath, trying to lift a heavy weight and realizing that this is going to be a lot of work. Start running. Start pushing yourself and running. I've been running a lot more, and that's one thing that I've started to realize is running is a great way to get a hold of this, your mind, and go through that struggle of you're going to keep pushing whether you want to or not. I know your lungs are burning and you're tired. I know your legs are starting to feel weak and on fire, but you're going to keep going. You got more in you. You can do this. Cold showers are an amazing way to do this. Cold ice baths, however you want to do that. They're great. They suck. Not going to lie. I did a cold shower today, and I haven't done one in a couple of weeks. And man, getting back into that, it was just like, I don't want to do this. No, I don't know if I can do this. I'm like, dude, you just got done doing a long stint of cold showers. What are you talking about? You can't do this. It's super cold. Yeah, it's going to be very uncomfortable, but you can do this. Stop allowing the weakness of your body to dictate what you do with your mind. And so I did a cold shower. And guess what? It sucked. It was difficult. It was freezing cold. But I overcame myself and I made myself do it anyway. And that's a great thing about doing hard things is you start to realize that you can do more than you think you can. You can accomplish more than you think you can. And it's these little micro wins that you go through that end up giving you the strength you need to push through some of the different issues that you're dealing with. You start to see that, hey, I'm more resilient than I thought I was. I can do more than I thought I could. I have what it takes to overcome this thing, this being. So why can't I overcome some of these emotional issues that I'm having in my life that I don't want to deal with? Some other things that you can do is therapy. That could be a great one. Some of you need to go to therapy. Some of you just need to go to talk to somebody about what's going on in your life, but not just to talk and complain, but to figure out, this is what's going on, how do I get better? This is what I'm dealing with, how do I overcome it? And actually work to overcome it. I worked with a therapist a few years ago. I was talking to him about changing and developing and overcoming some of the different things that we were working through. And he was, you can absolutely overcome it. He's like, I've got people who come in here and we talk and we go through the process and they work on it and they get better and I don't see them anymore because they've overcome whatever that issue was that they had. And then I have people who come in and I've had them in here for years talking about the exact same thing that we talked about on the first day because they refuse to do the work. They're okay with coming in here and just talking about it, getting it off their chest and feeling like they've done something about it for the time being until they need to come back and talk about it again. So if you do go to therapy or something, you need to make sure that you're going in with the idea that you're going to do the work to overcome whatever's going on. If you're just going in to talk about it and complain, it's pseudo work. You're not doing anything. You're making yourself feel better momentarily, which is just another Band-Aid. Self-reflection. You don't have to go to therapy. You can do self-reflection instead if you feel comfortable going through some of that on your own. That's one of the things that I liked about psychedelics when I was doing psychedelics, was that it forced you into self-reflection whether you wanted to or not. You went into a place where a problem comes up that you've been dealing with in your life, and you can't run away from it. You're just sitting there staring it down until you deal with it. Sometimes the next psychedelic experience would bring that up again, and you're sitting there dealing with it because you hadn't resolved that issue. And then once you got to a place where you resolved that issue, the next experience went into something else. Psychedelics can be very beneficial, I think. They can also be very, very difficult. So you need to be careful if you're going to be doing something like that, especially if you're dealing with some deep, dark emotional issues. It can get pretty dicey, pretty quick. But self-reflection is great. You can journal. You don't have to do psychedelics for self-reflection. You can journal. You can think about what's going on and start to come up with different ways to maybe overcome that. But that's why therapy can be helpful. If you find the right therapist, they can help you work through different processes to getting better. You can also cut out distractions like TV and social media. Just going out and just talking with friends, just, nothing real deep, just out talking all the time. Just take some time to sit by yourself. Meditate. Meditate is a huge one. Sit in the stillness with yourself. There's so many people who get frustrated with meditation. Even 10 minutes, they're like, I can't even meditate for 10 minutes because my mind and the thoughts. It's like, yeah, that's why you need to meditate. That's why you need to do that. It's showing you where your thoughts and your feelings are as you're in that meditation. And if you can't sit in the stillness and be okay with it because you've got all these thoughts and your body wants to get up and it feels sore and you don't like it, it's uncomfortable, I'm wasting time, I don't know what the point of this is, then that's why you need to meditate. You need to go back into the stillness and learn how to just let go. Every single time that discomfort comes up, you let it go. And that's what's so great about meditation. That's why meditation can be so beneficial with some of these different things, because you learn how to just let stuff go. So when you get out into your daily life and your boss starts saying something that you don't like, you know what? I'm just going to let it go. I'm not going to let it bother me. I'm not allowing myself to go there. So meditation can be great. You also need to be reading and educating yourself on who you are as a person and how to overcome some of the different things that you deal with. Quotes can be a great thing. You can read quotes, read books that talk about how your mind essentially affects who you are as a person. There's a lot of different stuff out there that you can read. And you'll begin to take little pieces here and there, and you'll start to put things together, and you'll start to find different ways that work for you to get over those issues that you're dealing with. To get to that place where joy begins to just sprout within you and you start to cultivate it and it starts to grow larger and larger and larger. That peace begins to develop within you and you're no longer looking at outside sources for peace. You're going inward to find it. Not looking for the outside sources to make you feel happy. You're experiencing that joy from within. So reading, educating yourself can be great. Another big one is stop complaining. Whatever it is that you're dealing with or going through, stop complaining about it. This goes back to kind of that idea in therapy where the people who go to therapy and they're there for years is because they are getting some sort of release whenever they talk about their issue, that it is a pseudo fix for what's going on. When you complain, that's kind of the same thing. I've had, I don't even know how many people who've talked about depression, and when they're talking about their life or what is going on with their life, the issues, they're kind of complaining. It's like, well, my depression, blah, 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 blah. And it's because of this depression, blah, 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 blah. And so they're using the issue that they have, depression, as a way to complain. But as they do that, it's releasing some sort of pressure that is on them. And then it feels like, hey, I've done something about this issue, even though you haven't done anything about it. It's kind of the same thing that has been talked about recently, this phenomena of watching, so we'll say sports, watching people who have gone out and played sports and done really well, and then you watch that and you feel like you're a part of it, but since you watch it and you feel like you're a part of it, you don't actually go out and do it yourself. Because you've got that dopamine hit from watching these people, you no longer have to go out and actually make it happen yourself. They say the same thing with working out. Instead of people going and working out, what they'll do is they'll watch a video on how to work out. And then after they watch the video on how to work out, they feel like they've done a good workout, so they don't actually go work out. It's this pseudo accomplishment without actually having to do the work to reach that accomplishment. So you have to make sure that you're going in and that you're doing the work. As you go through this process, you need to start to become aware of what you're doing and what's going on within your life. You have to become aware of the different thought processes that you're having, the different feelings that you're having. Many people are just on autopilot. We're on autopilot with what we think. We're on autopilot with how we feel. Yes, we do. I deal with anxiety, so I get in a situation and I feel anxious and blah blah blah. Right? Well, are you actually becoming conscious of that, or are you just allowing that to run you and rule you? You get so comfortable with some of these feelings that they just start to take over, and it just is a subconscious process. It's a program that begins to run, and you don't do anything to stop it. You don't do anything to pull yourself out of that. So in that case of anxiety, do you stop yourself and think, well, why do I feel like this right now? What is going on? I'm about to walk into a room of people and all of a sudden I feel anxious. Why? What's the worst that's going to happen when I go in there? Are these people going to attack me? Am I not safe? What's going to happen? It's catching those little things and starting, instead of just allowing yourself to feel anxious because that's how you always feel, it's catching yourself and being like, whoa. Wait a second. Why are you feeling anxious right now? What's going on? Why do you feel this way? It's becoming aware of what's happening within you. It's becoming aware of the thoughts that you think on a regular basis. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about becoming conscious of your unconscious thoughts. Carl Jung said, until you can make the unconscious conscious, your thoughts will direct your life and you will call it fate. I don't know if I have that one quite right, but it's pretty close. But you're going to essentially allow this autopilot program to run your life, and then you're going to call it fate because you're not willing to go in and become conscious of the things that are happening subconsciously. You have to be able to look at these things and catch yourself when they're happening. When those negative thoughts are coming in, you have to be able to go and grab that negative thought and say, wait, what are you doing here? Who said that you could come in and start running my life? You're not allowed to be in this vessel. Get out. And then replace that with the person that you want to be. Sounds easy. It can take a lot of work though. So if you're going to start doing this and you're going to start getting into this, don't just think that, this is just going to be easy and a cakewalk. Some of it's going to take a lot of work. Some of it may be easier than other aspects, but you're dealing with something that has been intrinsically programmed for a long, long time. Some of these things go back long time. It's not necessarily that you have to go back and deal with all the little things that happened, but you're rewriting or reprogramming the system. And that can take a little bit of time. So be willing to stick in it for the long haul. Be willing to stay in it and play the long game. And understand that just because I feel how I am now, 2 weeks might not be enough time for me to feel the way that I want. Get rid of that quick fix mentality. Get rid of that get rich quick idea. This is about you changing your life. You should be in it for the long haul, regardless of how long it takes or what you need to do. You need to be willing to dive in, all in, so that you can change your life, so that you can get to the place where you feel peace and joy and love without the need of the external environment to mirror that back at you. You should be mirroring that out to the environment. That's how we change the world. If you want to know the truth, that's how the world changes. I already gave the quote by Leo Tolstoy. Can't remember if I said Mahatma Gandhi. You must be the change you want to see in the world. The world is only going to change if you learn how to change yourself. That's it. We look at the world, we see all the different problems happening. We see all the different things going on that aren't right, that need to be fixed. But people are so focused on trying to fix these issues that they refuse to look at themselves and refuse to see that because they have so many deep-seated issues within themselves, they don't understand that the world isn't going to change because we're not changing this part of us. It's scary and it's hard to do sometimes. But I can guarantee you, if you are willing to go in and deal with whatever's going on inside of you, your life will get better. If you're willing to go in and be brave enough and bold enough to deal with the issues that you're going through, you can change your life. And you don't have to chase after all these different things outside of you to get to that place. You don't have to accumulate and acquire all these different things that most people are going after and saying that, hey, if you do this, you'll feel better. You get all this money, you're going to feel so much better about yourself. Because back to that Alex Hormozy quote, money only solves money problems, and you're left with problems money can't solve. But if you can change yourself, if you can change what's going on within, your life can, boom, explode into the life that you want it to be. And I'm not talking about becoming the next billionaire. I'm talking about living in such peace and joy and happiness that it doesn't matter whether you become the next billionaire or not. Who cares? Some people want to chase after that. That's great. Some people don't. That's great. What do you want? How do you want to live your life? You want to live the life that you want to live? You got to change the person who you are now. That can take a lot of work. But it's work well worth doing. I promise you that. That's going to be the end of our video today. Thank you for taking the time to watch. If you got anything out of this, let me know in the comments. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you learned. Please share this with other people. Again, if we want to change our world, it has to start with us. It has to start internally. You have to do your part. You have to change yourself and work on yourself. And you have to figure out how to overcome the different challenges that you have. And I have to do the same thing. You have to realize as well, as I'm doing, is that you're going to be peeling back layers, as if you're peeling back layers on an onion. I overcame depression and anxiety. Thank God. Because that was a miserable, miserable experience. But guess what? There's other layers in here that I still have to deal with. There's other layers that I'm going through that I'm peeling back as well. So don't think that just because you get through this one, everything's great and perfect. Make this a lifelong goal. Make this a lifelong process that you're going to continue to peel back the little layers as they pop up. And they may not all pop up at once, right? You may get through the first big thing and you'll have a little resting period. And then something else will pop up and you'll be like, oh, I need to work on that now. And you go to work on that and you get through that and then you'll have a little resting period. But the goal is to continue to do it, to continue to work through whatever the issues are, all the little issues. Same thing for me, to continue to work through that. And as we do that individually, we can begin to change who we are. And as we begin to change who we are, we begin to change the world. Thank you for your time today. I wish you all the best. Have a great day. If you enjoyed today's episode, first of all, I would like to say thank you for watching or listening. The second thing I would like to do is ask you for a huge favor. And that is for you to like the video, comment on the video, subscribe or follow my channel, and probably most importantly, share with your social network so that together we can work on changing the world and making it a better place. Again, thank you for watching or listening, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.